After watching this film, your perspective on the world and the processes happening within it, as well as on yourself, might change drastically. Some of you will resist the thoughts and ideas presented in this film, but that's okay. Let's start with the fact that as humanity, throughout our history, we keep repeating the same scenarios over and over again. We clash heads, start wars, find reasons to hate each other, and we can't effectively share the resources of our planet among ourselves. But why does it all happen this way? The solution to this problem, which you will hear in this film, is something you haven't encountered anywhere else, and only a few people have thought about it. We'll use the moment of our birth as the starting point in this narrative. Each of us begins our journey on this planet from that starting point, in that initial form. When we are born, we know nothing about this world. Our minds are blank, we have no information about it, and we do not have any conceptual view of it. It's simply impossible due to our physical makeup. Our brain, just like our body, is still not fully formed. Gradually, as we grow and develop, we start asking ourselves certain questions. Some of these questions are, who am I, and what is this world I found myself in? And it's our parents who provide us with answers at the beginning of our life journey. They become the main source of information about this world and the human society we were born into. At birth, our mind is empty and clean, since we haven't yet had any information about the world or a certain interpretation of it, meaning the lens through which we will later view the world. Then we start receiving information and realize that we've landed in the midst of huge societal processes that began before we were born and continue to unfold in a specific direction. We find ourselves in a huge flow of information, which we are helped to organize in our heads by creating a certain picture of the world. And before we start grasping this information and the rules of the game in the society we are part of, until all that, we are blank slates in terms of understanding the world. It is indeed our parents who are the first to whom we pose questions about this world, and they provide us with their answers. But what kind of answers are these? What thoughts and concepts about the surrounding world and the humans in it are implanted in our heads? Depending on the environment and society we are born into, a specific worldview typical of that group is ingrained in our minds. And in any group or society at any point in the world, the worldview you're given at birth will never be completely accurate and reflective of reality in all its truth. Although, on an emotional level, over time, it may seem to you like the only undeniable truth. It becomes ingrained and forms part of your self-identity, meaning it is an inseparable component of your personality. I reiterate, it doesn't matter which society you were born into, your idea and conception of the world will not hold the absolute truth. Different societies have different approaches to the world, and from birth, you are obligated to follow them. Each generation instills ideas in you, just as the previous one did for them. By ideas, I mean the mental image you have of the world, what's right and wrong, what you can and can't do, who's right and who's to blame, what's good and what's bad, how you should live your life and what to avoid, who is your friend and who is your enemy. Your brain sets these ideas as a standard that helps you survive in this world, and it's from this picture that you base your subsequent actions. I'll explain why no society has a completely correct view of the world later on. Besides planting ideas and notions about the world we find ourselves in from the moment we're born, we're also given a certain self-identity. Now, I'm going to ask you, who are you? In response to this question, a certain amount of information will rush into your mind, telling you who you are and what you are. But what if I told you that not all of this information is accurate, and right now you can't even realize exactly what's not? You're not who you think you are. It sounds strange and off-putting, but let me explain. Let me present to you a different, more accurate picture of the world around us than the one our ancestors and the societies we live in have given us. As I mentioned earlier, by the end of this video, your worldview will fundamentally change if you're not afraid to accept it. I will prove to you why this worldview aligns better with reality and the proper arrangement of human relationships. As I mentioned earlier, the first source of information about the world and our place in it comes from our parents. They pass information on to us, but what exactly in that information is incorrect? What have each generation of people gotten wrong? Here, let's pause the transfer of information and talk about the world as a whole, about what it truly is, and what it means to be human. There is a person, and the world around them. So what is the world we actually live in? As you may have already noticed, many nations and people on our planet have their own interpretations and concepts of the universe and the structure of human society within it. Each group of people builds a kind of cult around a certain concept based on life experience and the information they have about the world. And largely because of these worldviews and their interpretations, people begin arguments and conflicts with one another. But which perspective on the world is the most correct? A complete answer and understanding of the universe, as well as the best and only right way for a person to live in it, is something we're unlikely to ever fully find. As you understand, our perspective and analysis of the world is based on the information we have received about it, and we can never physically obtain complete and thorough information about the world. We are representatives of the Homo sapiens species, and our bodies have limitations in understanding existence. We simply don't have enough senses to capture and notice everything happening in existence. We invent various tools that allow us to detect different phenomena in reality. For example, we can hardly detect radiation with just our senses. We only start to realize that something is wrong when our bodies begin to break down. Or there are various microorganisms, the existence of which we can only see under a microscope. We possess sight, hearing, smell, touch, and the ability to taste. We define any object in the universe primarily by its relationship to us, to humans. Does it bring benefit, harm, or is it neutral? We haven't even fully understood how our bodies and brains work. We're just on the way to that. Let me put it like this. At this moment in time, the world cannot be fully grasped or justified by a person. Right now, it is completely unknowable to us. This is why people create concepts about the world based on scraps of information. Each concept about the world is built upon assumptions constructed on gaps in our understanding of it. So, at present we can say that the world can be subject to any interpretation by a person and used to realize any of their ideas. By ideas and concepts about the world, I mean any representations and thoughts about the purpose of existence and the structure of human society within it to obtain the greatest benefit for humans. In other words, I want to say that a person has the right to live their life however they want, because we simply cannot comprehend the right and only correct way. Everyone has their own experiences, and based on those experiences, each person wants something different. That's the fate of human thinking and understanding, as well as its physical aspect, which is the body. The style of living differently from others is built on a lack of information about this world. Everyone develops their own perspective and concept of the world in their mind. What's right and useful, and what's wrong and harmful. Each person starts to believe that only their specific way of living on this planet is correct. Agree that the world looks different through the eyes of a believer and an atheist, and it's completely impossible to fully prove who among them is right and who is not, so everyone builds their life path differently. One can make a similar comparison with a racist and a non-racist, a homophobe and a non-homophobe, and so on. But in most cases, a particular way of living and belonging to it is determined by the environment you were born into, the society you grew up in. From birth, it starts to be ingrained in your mind as a shaping picture of existence that you lean on in your subsequent actions. The brain takes it as the only true reality, and many fall into the trap of this worldview, with the brain defending and protecting it in all sorts of ways, even if alternative information might be more aligned with reality and truth, because the brain sees the defense of the initial worldview as necessary for survival. Thanks to science, we can find a common objective material reality. We can only be sure that 2 + 2 = 4, but unfortunately, numbers can't always be the only correct and true criterion in a person's life. Science strives to give us a complete objective understanding of the material world and physical laws, but unfortunately, it doesn't provide a single correct interpretation of how a person should live their life. Everything around us, the physical material space, is merely raw material, a tool for creating and embodying a certain idea of a person. What is the truth for human existence, living and organizing human society? There isn't a single truth or right answer. We can live life in any way we choose, and we can find an explanation for any arrangement of human society in the world. Why should it be organized this way and not another? Why would living life this way be considered right? As I mentioned earlier, the world is subject to any interpretation and any idea due to our lack of knowledge. Our minds are in a constant state of generating these various ideas. We strive to simplify the surrounding material world for an easier existence. Humans can change the objective physical world in any way to embody their ideas and concepts. The world itself has no inherent purpose. It is merely material for human consciousness and mind. The material world has no goals or tasks. The idea of purpose exists only in the human mind. Many people argue about the truth of certain judgments, and each finds their own evidence for one concept or another. The meaning of the world is primarily attributed by humans because they possess reason and consciousness, which construct certain concepts of the surrounding reality. But all of this is done mainly to ease our existence. Our minds can't start acting without a clearly developed worldview. Perhaps the world has a purpose and some sort of destiny, but only the creator of this world, if there is one, would know for sure. Because we exist in this world in human form, it's impossible for us to know that for certain. We don't even fully understand the purpose of our human existence and humanity as a whole on a conscious level. You may have heard different interpretations about this. However, no conclusive evidence has been found for any of them, and they are unlikely to be true. But what kind of goal does our physical body set for us? The goal that our human body sets is survival, prolonging life as much as possible. Everything else in human existence flows from this. A person is a being susceptible to various ideas. At the core of every idea and concept about organizing human society lies the notion of the good for a person, some kind of bliss that can be achieved. All ideas propose their own path, a road to happiness, how to live in order to be happy. In religion, a certain way of living is connected to whether you will end up in paradise and be closer to God. In human society, it revolves around economic prosperity and the acquisition of goods. It all comes down to how the state should be arranged so that people are well fed, protected, and content. As we can see, a person is indeed a creator, using the surrounding world to bring their ideas to life. But let's reiterate, the aim of any human idea is to benefit humanity as a whole or in a specific instance. One way or another, this goal is closely tied to a feeling within them. The ego, the inner sensation, becomes part of the criteria for truth, to achieve that inner sense of joy, pleasure, happiness. However, each person builds their own criteria for what happiness looks like. More precisely, something within us shapes this. Everyone constructs their own form and style of existence based on the idea that resides in their mind. A person is a being susceptible to various ideas. Unfortunately, due to different understandings of how to achieve this good, its image, and how it should be embodied in the material world, conflicts arise among people. Some mechanism within us chooses the definitions of the image, the achievement of which we allow ourselves to feel happy. As you might have noticed, there are so many human societies on our planet, and for ages, they've been debating about the interpretation of this world, its essence and purpose, as well as the role of their society within it, as if there's some kind of singular correct ideal, an image that the universe itself has chosen for humanity or a specific group. But I'll tell you this, the world is arranged in such a way that it can be interpreted in any way by a person and can reflect any of their ideas. The material world is created to embody these ideas. In reality, the world is a blank clearing without purpose or meaning. An idea exists in the world only as long as its bearer exists, since in materiality, it does not exist. The world is filled with ideas created by humans as interpretations. In each interpretation, there are true judgments about the world, but not all of them. If part of your concept corresponds to an objective assessment, that doesn't make the rest equally valid. The remaining part of the concept cannot be true solely because something it derives from is right. We must accept the fact that all our speculations about the world, its meaning, style, and way of living in it, cannot be true 100% or the only correct ones. All over the world, we see a huge variety of forms and styles. So, human existence cannot have only one correct path, but each concept has something in common, and that commonality needs to be taken as truth. We need to understand that a person is just a consumer of information. The whole world for us in our mind is simply one huge piece of information that our brain tries to arrange into a concept that allows us to keep surviving in it. A person is a vessel for ideas. A person is a being guided by ideas. People merge so intensely with their ideas that they begin to consider them such an integral part of themselves that they are even willing to kill one another to embody them. When a certain concept or idea residing in their head is criticized, a person starts to feel it as a personal offense, and on an internal, unconscious level, it begins to be considered a threat to their life. Some people reject your ideas, and this evokes a negative response in you because you have merged with a certain idea lodged in your mind. Ideas live and exist separately from a person, even though they are created by them. But then they, like viruses, look for a habitat for themselves, and their habitat becomes our brain. They seize it at a certain level, responsible for the image of the world in our consciousness, becoming a part of our personality, and we start acting according to their interpretation. But a person is not just the idea, only if it is the idea of the creator of everything. A person is what provides a habitat for ideas. Our material world does not create or consciously embody ideas itself, and does not require us to fulfill any of those ideas. It's just the hallucination of our brain, and you are also influenced by one of the ideas about the world. I separate the person and the ideas. A person should possess and control ideas, not the other way around. But we do not fully realize this, and in almost all cases, it's ideas that control the person, rather than the person controlling them. Ideas exist for the person, not the person for the ideas. In summary, there is a world, and there is a person in it. There is an idea, and the person's representation of the world, and of themselves in it, meaning a certain interpretation. And any idea cannot be a 100% reflection of the essence of the world, the essence of a person in existence, and the essence of existence for the person. There is no single style or form of a person living in this world, meaning a way of interacting with the world. A person should not become so strongly identified with a particular worldview that they are willing to kill for it. As you might understand my point, a lot of our perception of the world consists of concepts and assumptions that don't exist in reality. They only exist in the mind, and are created by humans for the order of the world and human society in it. Any idea is not real in essence. It is embodied in the material world only as a copy from the mind, but its essence, prior to human labor and creativity, does not exist in the world. As Plato said, there is our world and the world of ideas. Today's world also consists of certain interpretations of the world for ordering existence. And here we return to parents, as you might have already guessed. By the time we are born, our parents and the society we find ourselves in are already filled with certain ideas, and our parents are the first ones to start filling our heads with various notions that begin to live with us from the very start of our understanding of certain things about this world. In other words, parents and society begin to reproduce the ideas that occupy their minds within us. More precisely, the idea located in their minds starts to reproduce itself by transferring from one head to another, and we begin to consider it necessary and a self-forming core of our personality and identity. Later on, it becomes difficult for us to even realize and accept a different vision of the world and ourselves in it, since we, at a certain level of awareness, become the embodiment of the idea and its creation. Unconsciously, we begin to see ourselves as one whole with the idea. Given that our understanding of self and our survival in this world is built upon this idea, who are we and what is our purpose? This is where the essence of the differences among societies on our planet lies. It's not just a transfer of some concept of understanding the world, but also a certain style of thinking is developed, which ultimately encapsulates a specific approach to reality and how we interact with it, how we use it. That's the essence of idea reproduction. But as you've probably realized, depending on where and to whom we were born, and which idea dominates in the society of our parents and within them, we become the habitat for that idea. Essentially, in the very beginning, we are just empty vessels, without a specific operating system in our heads, if you'll allow me to put it that way. At the start of our existence, we are not free in our choices. What gets embedded in us is what we accept as truth, and later it will be very hard to convince us otherwise. But copying from one person to another can never be complete, especially during adolescence when individuals begin to spontaneously reject some ideas presented by the older generation, and there's always an opportunity for them to accept different ideas and perspectives about how to organize themselves and everything around them. This mechanism is built into us by nature as a necessity for change and renewal. So what are these ideas and concepts that ultimately lead us to conflict with one another? Remember, people never actually fight with each other. It's the ideas within them that clash, and they use people as instruments for this. We can't objectively and impartially recognize a single correct path. What is one of the very first ideas that parents and society instill in our consciousness, which contributes to our self-identification? It's the notion of nationality and race. Nationality is also a specific idea that simplifies and stabilizes reality for a person. Some might argue that the foundation of nationality lies in the physical nature of a person, in their genes. Each nation has its own distinctive external traits. Some might prefer to use the term race instead of nation, but that doesn't change anything. Does a person's appearance and physical form really matter? Despite their outer manifestation, they remain a human being, a representative of the Homo sapiens species. The most important thing is that they continue to have reason and consciousness. Our skin color and facial features cannot be the fundamental point in interacting with the world and other people. Our self is not defined by our body. It is defined by our brain and the ideas within it. Genes and DNA do not determine our self and the identity we possess. But the most significant point is not even this. Why is nationality an idea created by humans, and in reality, it doesn't exist? It is simply a construct of our minds. Let's imagine an experiment. Since birth, we would leave you alone. Without access to people and society, you would most likely perish. But in our experiment, you mature to an age of understanding. And here's the question: do you realize or even know that concepts like nationality or race exist in reality, and that you are a representative of one of them? The answer would be no. To have an understanding of this, you would need to have something in common with others representing this idea, but you simply have no thoughts or prejudices about this community of people. No one has instilled that in you. We can also think of the Mowgli syndrome, where a human being grows and develops among animals. They can't even fully realize they are a human. We are merely vessels in which different information flows, shaping our understanding of the world and ourselves. We are what processes information. Only instincts can manifest in us, and those are inherent to any representative of the human race, regardless of physical manifestation and form. This proves that your nationality isn't a factory setting passed down through your genes. This idea does not manifest in us from the moment we are born. There always needs to be someone to pass it on to you. It exists only in the human mind as a way to interpret the world. It's non-existent in material reality. Nationality and race are merely social constructs invented by humans, not existing in external reality, but only in the realm of the human mind if a person believes in it and accepts the idea. Until that moment, you might not even suspect this and consider it a natural part of human existence. All I want to express is that there are no subspecies of humans like Germans, French, Chinese, Indians, and so on. There are just people who have the idea of a Frenchman, a German, and so forth within them. It's just an idea, a specific operating system for the mind to interact with the world in a certain way. I want to lead you to the idea that there's no need for you to follow the rules of any group you were born into and are considered a part of. Your physical connection to them doesn't obligate you to have the same ideas and beliefs that most people do, or to exhibit the behavior typical of a certain nation. You are more than just a body. It so happens that humanity didn't start its journey on Earth as one community. There were many different communities, groups, tribes, each forming their own vision of the world, creating rules for living within their group, and developing their own culture, language, and so on. As you've already figured out, because we lived and existed, and even survived in different groups, people started to develop different interpretations of reality, ways to regulate society, and a general sense of division. Each group created its own culture, imagery, shades of reality, and purpose for its community. But what obligates us to inherit the identification of our ancestors? Is there really a debt to our ancestors that we must carry and pass on to future generations? This idea is just like any other. What compels us to continue their understanding of the world, of ourselves, and even to carry on their conflicts with other groups and feelings of hatred toward them? In reality, there is nothing like that. It only exists in the realm of human ideas and conceptions. This sense of duty, upheld by an inner feeling, only exists if you choose to believe in it, but it doesn't become part of everyday reality because of that. Why should biological familial ties obligate us to think, ponder, and act like our ancestors? It might have been justifiable in the past, but now, as we cooperatively engage with each other more clearly, we pay less attention to a person's origins. In more progressive societies, this distinction is almost negligible. So, should the past of our ancestors, as well as their views on reality and how the human world should be organized, dictate our actions in the present and future? The answer is no. But is there really such a big difference in people's nationalities, specifically in what these ideas hold within themselves? If we look at all the established world cultures, they all point to one thing: the pursuit of the good for humanity, the victory over evil, and the quest for happiness. Even the concept of good is defined similarly among people. Inside it lie universal values that can be found in various cultures. All people seek the same thing. So, the idea of nationality is more like just a form of specific existence, a certain style of living life. But in essence, there's no real difference here. All people have the same needs. On a physical level, they experience the same requirements. Days go by the same way. Everyone wakes up in the morning, has breakfast, goes to work, and works throughout the day. On some days, they meet up with friends and loved ones. The form and style of leisure might differ, but that never changes the essence. In most societies, the only differences are in some forms of etiquette and physical manifestations, like clothing and accessories. Language. A very important aspect that people are willing to fight over is the language they speak and the one they want to pass on to their children. Huge numbers of people define themselves through language. But what is language? Language is just a way of conveying information. Because people have been divided, each group created its own system of communication. Language is divided into written and spoken components. The spoken form, which is speech, is a set of sounds that expresses thoughts and concepts formed in a person's mind. All people on earth have the same thinking process. Everyone's brain works the same way. So it happens that the same phenomena, objects, and everything happening in the universe are just named with different sounds. Only due to prolonged separation, different languages have formed among people. What is writing? It's just a set of symbols that we decided to give certain meanings. We said that this combination of symbols means sky, this one means water, this one means human, and each of these geometric symbols is given a specific sound assigned to it by a person. And so it turned out that each sound has a designation for a particular thing. But a sound is just a sound. Why does a person give such great importance to it that people are ready to kill each other just to produce those specific sounds or use a certain sign rather than any other? Language is just a tool in the hands of humans, and we shouldn't take it to the point where we're willing to die or kill for it. Dying just because of this form of communication seems absurd. The essence of language is to allow us to convey information through this tool. All the different cultures emerged simply because, at the very beginning, we split apart from each other. And even within one culture, there are branches from the main culture, and other offshoot cultures have also developed autonomously. So, at this point in time, we need to shape all cultures and their manifestations into one common human culture. Every culture belongs to us, regardless of where we were born, regardless of the specific culture that's imposed on us from birth and which we're made to consider our own. Everything created by humans from the very start has been a shared cultural object for any human being because it was made by humans and no one else. Culture is the recognition of a certain idea, concept, or form as an ideal to strive for. Culture is a specific approach to reality that organizes it. There cannot be just one culture, nor can there be just one true culture. If we look at the universe around us, we will see how diverse it is. That diversity is what makes it beautiful. The world loves diversity. Religion. The largest religions today express the same idea, the idea of one God. The problem is that they all interpret this idea differently, attributing various traits and demands to God regarding humanity. Each religion has its own understanding of the path to God. The essence lies only in the different rituals dedicated to Him, but the idea remains the same. It's a connection with God. Any form of prayer is a conversation with God. However, I don't think that if God needs any form of worship, He would only demand one style or route to Him. A supreme being that created such a diverse and beautiful world is unlikely to have established and recognized only one way and form of communication with Him. Therefore, I would call the assertion of any specific religion that it alone offers the only true method of approaching and connecting with God incorrect. Conclusion. Within a nationality lies a set of views, beliefs, and customs of a particular group of people that they pass down from one generation to the next. All of these views, beliefs, and cultures can exist independently of nationality, simply as a variety of perspectives on the world in a common human understanding of existence. After all, this has led to people with different interpretations of reality and themselves creating separate leviathans with systems of power. Thomas Hobbes referred to the state as Leviathan in his treatise. In the past, having different states was necessary for mutual survival, but what about now? Now it seems we are divided into teams competing with each other, whose idea, lifestyle, or worldview is better. But the problem is that each nationality, each group with its own ideas, has created its own Leviathan with a coercive apparatus. And what happens when two different ideas confront each other? There is a clash, wars. But what is the essence of a state? States are merely a regulatory tool in human relationships, a governing entity in a certain territory that regulates human activity on it, and for some reason, we allow every specific group of people, usually referred to as some nation, who have their own views on the world, ideas, and perceptions of it, to delegate such a colossal entity as the state, with its apparatus of suppression. As we see, each of these groups always points weapons at another group of people with different views of themselves as individuals and the world as a whole. When one ideological group has weapons, it is likely, in most cases, that over time it will direct them against the state with representatives of another dominant societal idea about themselves and the world in general. States, with all their auxiliary tools, remain some of the most dangerous creations of humankind, a creation that can consume even those who believe they keep the Leviathan under control. And every Leviathan, one way or another, will strive for expansion and territorial growth. That's the nature of states. You can see this by looking at the current reality happening on our planet today. We can comfort ourselves with hopes that one day states will stop warring with each other, but that will never happen. The struggle of Leviathans is inevitable. Their nature remains unchanged regardless of the political system. Democracies also start wars. Every state is an idea that has taken up arms, and ideas will always be in contradiction, which is why state conflicts are unavoidable. That's the reality of today, which we have shaped through the ideas and representations that inhabit our minds. But what perspective on reality do we truly need and require? So why are we actually like actors playing certain roles in this world? Every action we take is scripted and stems from the ideas and beliefs ingrained in us about the world around us and about ourselves. In most of our actions, the conscious component is absent. We do everything based on an inner call rooted in ideas established a long time ago. We almost never consciously examine our motivations. We never think about how we think, why we think that way, and for what ultimate purpose. If we look at today's world, we see that one person with an idea of being a member of a certain nationality kills another person who believes they represent a different nation. Many people do this in their political and national self-representations in today's imagined human reality. But in the objective physical reality of the universe, it's simply one person killing another person. And that's the only interpretation that's truly valid. Why should we define ourselves like our ancestors? Why do we take on their identification? Why is it considered correct to adopt our ancestors' identifiers in today's world? Why do we continue their conflicts? The past should not hold significance for the new generation. The history, mistakes, and foolishness of our ancestors should die with them. Their wars are not ours. Just because we share a biological connection with them doesn't obligate us to act in the name of the ideas that once filled their minds. We must not let these ideas of division into nations and races fill our minds and dictate our actions. For if we continue down this path, it will lead to nothing good in the future. It's time to create a universal identity. It's time to free ourselves from the shackles that are unconsciously imposed on us. These shackles are that we bear some responsibility to those who came before us, and that we are obliged to carry their identifications forward. We need to break free from their fabricated worldview. Further division of people into nationalities and nation-states will lead to even more destructive consequences. Weapons are becoming increasingly deadly, and one day they will be used. You have to understand that today's reality exists only in our heads. It's all ideas. There are no states and nations in reality. It's just a way of organizing human life in the material world. The past is merely information in our minds. Tell me, what is the purpose of today's world order? Where is it leading us? Will it take us to safety? The answer is no. Will it bring us to a common freedom of individual? Their thoughts and ideas also won't. Will it lead us to a fair distribution of the planet's resources? Definitely no. Will it lead us to extinction as a species? Yes. We are people. We are not ideas. We shouldn't merge so completely with them and allow them to own us and dictate who we are. We should own the ideas and use them to enhance our lives. We, our brains and minds, should be what regulates ideas. Realize that many goals you think are yours are actually the goals of ideas that exist in your head. Let's imagine what would happen if we wiped everyone's memory and destroyed all written ideas and historical data of various civilizations. Then, a person, having lost their memory, would be free from these ideas because they simply wouldn't know they exist. They wouldn't know that certain events once took place. For all ideas and information exist only in the minds and consciousness of people. In the surrounding material reality, they do not exist. All statues and architectural works would just be statues without any meanings instilled in them by previous generations. The flag of any country would simply be colored lines or geometric shapes. Let's take a step back from our planet and look at things from afar. To the universe, all our ideas about different cultures and the histories of various tribes are meaningless. Tomorrow, a solar flare could wipe out all of humanity, and the universe wouldn't even blink. All our silly, pointless arguments and conflicts on an international level, debates over borders, languages, religions, and so much more, will end without any logical resolution, simply because there's no logic in those disputes, no real justification. Each person interprets reality in a way that benefits them at that moment. State conflicts are pointless and illusory. We just get in each other's way. It gets to the point where sometimes we're ready to kill one another over ideas and notions about the world that don't even exist in reality. Everything is meaningless. Every culture created by humans has, in essence, aimed at the same thing. They carry the same thought and idea. The only difference is the form they take. Why should we bear the burden of our ancestors if those ideas prevent us from building a better future? Even a biological connection to a community shouldn't bind us to continue thinking and acting in line with that community's style. We are all human, vessels, of different shades and shapes, and we're infected with ideas that are at war with each other through us. Each idea promises us some good, but the ideas that lead us to division on a universal human level are a deception and a mistake in our thinking. Each of us is different, and each of us loves different things. Different movies, music, paintings, books, stories, and cultures. No matter what fills us up, we will always remain human. And any creation of ours, in any corner of the planet, and even later in any corner of the universe, is part of our shared humanity. Let's go back to a child once more. Imagine a child in front of you with a pure mind and no preconceived notions about reality. And instead of involving him in a specific self-identification that would lead him to divide people into us and them, we'll give him self-identification that isn't tied to any particular nation. We won't burden him with the weight of previous generations from a specific group, even if he was born into it. We'll help him understand that he is a person and has the right to live as he wishes, regardless of what ideas of self-identification his parents, ancestors, and society had. We shouldn't be butting heads again. We need to understand that everyone has the right to their own individual path in this life. We have to recognize that each person has their own journey, and violence and hatred towards each other because of different perspectives on oneself and reality are unlikely to help us achieve happiness, both individually and collectively. I'll say it again, some of our judgments about the world are so deeply rooted in our consciousness that they don't actually exist in reality at all. Much of our perception of the world consists of concepts and assumptions that don't exist in reality, but only in our heads, created by humans to create order in the world. And one of these concepts is nationality. This is primarily information about what happened in the past and how it acts as a chain of cause and effect that continues into the present. Because of this, we continue the conflicts of past generations simply because they recreate themselves in us through the ideas, perceptions of the world they pass on to us and that shape our self-identification. But a person, as we've said before, is not an idea except for the idea of God. He is a vessel that is filled with an idea, but he cannot be the idea itself. He is its bearer and consumer, a vessel that's been given some kind of meaning. You are a representative of one of the ideas, and some people challenge your ideas, which triggers a negative response in you because you've become intertwined with that idea. Why should the past matter to us? Our ancestors, their lives, their lifestyles and way of living. Why are we obliged to adopt their habits, behavior, mindset, and everything else just because of biological ties with them? Why do we continue their conflicts? Your nationality is just an operating system. You are not that operating system. Nationality is just an idea like any other. It's merely a way to explain the world and organize it. This is the foundation of the current world order. We believe and play in a world where people are divided into some mythical nationalities, and people become attached to these ideas. Like any worldview, it's just a perspective. It's not some ultimate truth. A worldview is used by people to simplify their existence, but it doesn't seem like the current world order derived from this perspective really makes our lives any easier than they could be. Nationalities don't really exist. They only exist in human consciousness as an idea of organizing existence. A particular view of the world and being shouldn't lead a person to create a personal leviathan with a mechanism of violence. And every state, or rather the fundamental and central idea within it, strives for establishing hegemony over its personal interpretation of the reality surrounding us. That is, structuring and organizing human life and the world around them in this reality. Let's return to the child as a blank slate. Imagine them. What thoughts and ideas about reality should we instill in their minds to build a better world than today? After all, this reality is created for embodying ideas. There is a world, and there is a person in it. There is an idea and a person's perception of the world and themselves in it, meaning a particular interpretation. And any idea can't be a 100% reflection of the essence of the world, the essence of a person in existence, and the essence of existence for a person. There is no single correct style or form of living in this world. That is, there's no only one way to interact with the world. A person shouldn't merge with a specific worldview to the point where they build such a strong self-identification and personality that they're ready to kill for it. So what kind of world arrangement should we create so that we can live this life to the fullest? And everyone should have the free right to live it as they wish, regardless of how they envision living it. Now, I'll provide an answer. A cosmopolitan state. We need to create a universal human state, the territory of which will encompass our entire planet and, in the future, any place in the universe that has humans. The cosmopolitan state will protect people of any origin, any worldview, and any way of living, as well as holders of any culture. This state will feature absolute freedom of various ideas and freedom from any imposed ideals. The cosmopolitan state won't adhere to any ideology, and its main task will be to protect people with diverse views and ideas. Everyone has the right to live as they wish, and the divisive laws that exist today will simply become impossible. Today, each group that identifies itself as a specific nation, culture, or ideology wields a violent apparatus, which ultimately leads to military conflict with another group that also possesses its own leviathan with a violent apparatus. If dissenting groups of people without a violent apparatus emerge within the state, they begin to face various pressures and even death from the state. In a cosmopolitan state, this is impossible, as it commits to protecting any person, regardless of the ideas that occupy their mind. Only if that person or group of people harbors ideas aimed at killing or oppressing others with different views. Any person with any idea can find a place on the planet where they can realize their ideal and live alongside like-minded individuals. Today's world, filled with violent apparatuses aimed at one another, is dangerous for the future existence of our species. Right now, governments are dividing up the land on Earth, and as progress advances, they will begin to carve out territories beyond our planet, leading us to looming interhuman wars over resources in space. This shouldn't happen. The essence and goal of a cosmopolitan state is for people to finally exist peacefully and freely, regardless of their views and self-identification. People will be able to move freely across the planet, no longer needing permission to visit a particular continent or place on Earth. Free development and technological progress will be available anywhere on the planet. People in underdeveloped societies and states will have the chance for a decent life, which they wouldn't be able to build on their own. We will be free from wars because large military groups answering to different states will be impossible. And of course, one of the tasks of the state will be to continue human expansion to other planets and objects in the universe. A universal human state is a necessary and inevitable step for our species. Right now, I've only expressed the general principles. A more complete and cohesive structure of the universal human state will be provided by me later. It's time to tell you about myself. My name is Georges de Rousseau, and I am a cosmopolitan non-nationalist. In my teenage years, I was deeply affected by a war that split my life and understanding of it into before and after. At one point, seeing how two sides interpret the same action differently sparked within me the desire to discover which perspective was correct. Upon realizing that each viewpoint had its own basis for truth and logic, I understood that the world is structured in such a way that any action or idea can be justified, and there will always be those who support certain arguments, as well as those who will hold an opposing viewpoint. I started to wonder, why do we, as humanity, always find reasons to hate each other? Why should I identify myself through a nationality that has led to these conflicts? My experience has shaped my belief that the world can be different. Remember how you feel when you meet someone from another nationality and notice how easily a barrier arises. Why is that? Why do we let our ideas and identities divide us when we are all human? Because of all this, my brain somehow came up with the idea that the world should be united and there shouldn't be any divisions of us versus them on a global level. Then I learned about the term cosmopolitanism, but to this day, no one is really promoting this idea. If they are, it's not in a way that would help create a united world. Time passed, and I became increasingly convinced of my beliefs, and gradually I started to formulate arguments and evidence that this idea is essential for all of humanity. I hope that I've been able to convince at least someone with my reasoning and arguments, and that they've decided to stop playing the game that's currently unfolding in the world. I'm tired of today's world events and the foolishness of politicians who act under the influence of the idea of some national identity for themselves and the people they represent. I'm tired of them using this idea to give their states the right to exist and continue dividing our planet among themselves. I'm worn out by the endless debates about the past. I'm tired of the fact that one person kills another simply because they have a different idea about their nationality in their head. Even if all the world's governments were democracies, it wouldn't lead us to peace on a global level. Armed conflicts would still continue, and people would die for ideas and concepts that don't even exist in reality. I understand that I'll probably have a hard time convincing many. The idea and the current perception of the world as it is now is too deeply ingrained in people's heads. Many can't even imagine themselves or the surrounding reality otherwise, outside of this idea. I myself have an ingrained identity tied to my country and nation, and sometimes I feel its presence within me, a feeling of belonging to the people I was born and raised with. But I know that it's just a construct implanted in me since childhood, an illusion, a trick of the mind, and I know that many are currently hearing the same ingrained call to identification within them. I know and understand why you're feeling resistance to my words right now. I get that the idea planted in you is currently seeking words that contradict my arguments, but please realize that none of this corresponds to reality, even if your feelings say otherwise. It's just a construct that exists in your mind, but not in reality. This idea planted in your brain dictates to you that the notion of a united world is absurd and unattainable in reality. Your idea of how to organize the world triggers fear related to survival. On a subconscious level, it tells you that survival and progress are impossible. Your brain is used to the familiar picture of the world and is afraid of an experience that is unknown to you until now. What would it be like to live in a unified state? The idea will instill fear in you and provide arguments that you won't be able to live freely in such a world, and that you and your children will face oppression. But let's say you have the idea of living your life as a German or any other nationality, then you can do that. After all, in a united world, there isn't a clear ideal. There isn't a single correct interpretation of how and as whom to live your life. You will have access to any culture that seems more true and right for you personally as an individual. A united world is a place where individuals and personalities will finally gain complete freedom. And all of this isn't utopia, it's achievable. The main thing is for you to find the intention and desire within yourself to build such a world on Earth. Some might argue that the idea of a cosmopolitan world is utopian, but isn't the creation of the European Union, which once seemed impossible, proof that unity is possible? Yes, it takes time and effort, but a gradual move towards integration is a real path. Don't think of a united world as unattainable. It's not true. It's unknown how long it will take humanity to fully grasp this idea, and grown-ups should decide not to condemn their children to an endless repetition of the same scenarios that are happening on our planet. How many empires have already fallen, and how many more will fall? New generations of people all over the planet will, in one way or another, challenge the existing foundations, and at this fracture, if we present them with this idea, I'm sure they will accept it. Maybe not all at once, but over time everyone will come to this understanding, and there won't be anyone left who can or wants to imagine a world divided into different armed pieces. Cosmopolitanism requires a new level of awareness, and I know we can achieve it. You might say that a united world is just another idea about shaping reality. That's true, but this idea has a much greater relevance to reality and to what the universe and humanity really are than today's worldview in our heads. And now, I want to say a few words to those who are ready to embrace the ideas of cosmopolitanism and call themselves cosmopolitans. Cosmopolitans, we are still living in a wild and primitive time. Our descendants will look at us like fools and wonder how people could fail to understand the objective truth and live divided among themselves. States will continue to divide the planet, wars will go on, and conflicts will become increasingly destructive. And let's not think that the consequences of using nuclear weapons can stop this. It will continue forever until people come to realize their unity. Great events and discoveries await us ahead, but they will only be achievable in unity when all representatives of humanity come together. Sooner or later, a cosmopolitan state will be built. Inside it, there should be rules that allow any form and style of human life to exist and thrive. A cosmopolitan state will become a global regulator of relationships between people with different views and interpretations of reality, and no point of view should be subject to persecution. The main task of a cosmopolitan state is to prevent people from killing each other simply because of different approaches to reality, living life. It's unlikely that my information and arguments will motivate many people to change the world towards creating a cosmopolitan state. The current idea of reality and the worldview that humanity holds will provide reasons for people not to support and to reject the concept of building a unified world. Under its influence, some will find such a world strange, confusing, and frightening. I'm afraid that only massive calamities created by mankind will lead them to realize the need for a new form of world order. Most likely, it will only be after a devastating war between nations on our planet that people in those nations will come to a new understanding and acceptance of themselves as a whole. I know that all people can accept a vision of the world in which there is a single state. After all, you remember that the world in a person's eyes can be interpreted in any way and accepted as truth. And the idea of a world state is more relevant to objective material reality than today's concepts. Those who have come to understand their true nature, you are humanity's hope. As grand as that may sound, you must be prepared for the worst-case scenarios for humanity, resulting from today's influence of this worldview about society. Find new ways to explain and advocate for this idea. Discover new arguments. Create even better ways to communicate this to people. Write scientific articles, books, music, films, and paintings centered around the idea of global unity. Pass this idea on to your children, and your children will pass it on to others. If the governments where you live allow you to self-determine and create political parties, then do it. When explaining your ideas, avoid violence, and don't ridicule those who don't adhere to the idea of cosmopolitanism or can't understand it. As you remember, we are humans, not ideas, and cosmopolitanism is just another idea for organizing the world. You are first and foremost a human, and you should treat each other with understanding. Your life journey has brought you to this realization. Your conversation partner is not. Everything has a cause and effect. Inside you, within your consciousness, there was a reason to accept this idea, but the other person didn't have that reason. Help them find that reason for acceptance within themselves. The acceptance of cosmopolitanism by people is a very long process, and they will get there. The current state of the world will lead people to a cliff from which they might fall and disappear forever. Our species will no longer exist, but you will be the ones who catch them at the edge and lead them to prosperity and the true life we all deserve, without hostility or neglect. Treat everyone with understanding. Even as cosmopolitans, we differ from each other. Each of us has our own ideas about how to live our lives right, what to do, and how to be truly happy. We may have different thoughts and perspectives, but at a global level, we are united. We are not going to stage any revolutions, no armed confrontations with others. We are not looking to seize power. The time will come when people will willingly hand over the right to govern into your hands. You must not be like previous generations of people. You must be honest with each other. Strive for openness and understanding of the processes within your body and consciousness. Don't hide anything from one another. Don't be afraid to share your thoughts and feelings with each other, even if it seems silly to you and puts you in an awkward position in your own eyes. Don't be afraid to be open. There will be those who hate you and see you as a threat, but that's okay. What is our fundamental idea of self-determination and identification? We do not belong to any one culture, but all cultures belong to us, and we have the right to choose the thoughts and ideas that seem useful to us. But remember that the world in a person's eyes can be subject to any interpretation. But remember, the world can be interpreted in many ways through a person's eyes, and what is true for your existence may seem foreign to someone else. Allow yourself and everyone to find their place in this world. Creating a global state is required by our collective world development. We can no longer move forward divided. In the past, people were separated not only physically, but also informationally. This continues to this day. Outsiders were always seen as something inhuman compared to one's own community. Another culture and way of life were misunderstood and seemed wrong, false, bad, and unnatural. Only those cultures and lifestyles that supported the survival of the group reached us, but not necessarily those that fostered development. There are cultures of conservation. Remember, no culture is the only one that's right. Each has something correct and something foolish. Any culture is just a way to interpret and organize existence. A united world state allows for any perspective and interpretation of this world to exist. Every viewpoint should be protected. There is no ideal life path, and everyone has their own way. We have no concept of right or wrong. The main task of cosmopolitans is to prevent people from interrupting each other and to promote the continued expansion of the human species across the rest of the world, that is, the universe. The very apparatus of a united state does not carry any discredit towards individuals or societies that live and interpret the world as they see fit. We can no longer allow people with certain identities to create their own organs of oppression and violence. The United States will protect every person, regardless of their physical form and origin, no matter who they consider themselves to be or how they want to live their life. As our symbol, I propose we take a white flag. Nowadays, it signals surrender in war, but we use it as a symbol of a blank slate, devoid of any specific meaning or ideology. Each person can create what they deem necessary and right for themselves. I ask for your help in spreading this video. For those who want to support me in the project, I kindly ask you to sponsor me through Patreon or other available methods. I couldn't find any major YouTube channel dedicated to cosmopolitanism, so if anyone wants to help me develop and further spread this idea, please support me. Also, please send this video to all your acquaintances. I hope for your support. Let's make this channel a place for attracting people who share our worldview. See you again soon on this channel.